Run it again, all the way through, Vex.
Same result every time, Sub-Marshal. Earth falls in 6 hours. Exactly 6.
The simulation booth smelled like burnt coffee and ozone, which was fair, since I'd spilled the coffee onto the ozone filter twice already that week. My name is Cole Marsh, and my official title on the Vorthane Dominion flagship Ashground Vigil was Human Liaison, Tactical Modeling Division, which is a fancy way of saying I pushed buttons on a war simulator that nobody outranked me enough to blame when it broke. The Dominion had been running the same simulation for 9 days straight. Sub-Marshal Ryn Thoss liked to watch it personally, arms folded behind his back, for eyes tracking the glowing battle lines like they owed him money. The scenario was simple if you didn't think about it too hard. A Skarn Remnant raider fleet, 11 warships strong, was inbound on Earth. The model said Earth's defense grid, the Dominion escort squadron, and every human vessel in orbit would be reduced to debris within 6 hours of first contact. Run it again, Thoss said, for what I think was the 412th time. I ran it again. The lights on the projection table rearranged themselves into the same doomed little dance. Red wedges converging, blue wedges collapsing, a clean 6-hour countdown ticking down to a tidy 0. I mostly used the time to reorganize my snack drawer, which is not a real piece of equipment but which I had installed anyway, because nobody reads the manifest that closely. The model's consistent, said Analyst Vex, one of the Dominion's junior officers, a soft-spoken sort with a habit of chewing on the end of her stylus. 11 ships, 6 hours, total defeat. It's been consistent for 9 days. Then why, Thoss said, do I have a bad feeling about it? I did not have a bad feeling about it. I had a granola bar. I offered him half. He declined, the way he always declined, like taking human snacks was somehow beneath the dignity of a 4-star Dominion officer, even though I'd personally watched him eat a whole packet of freeze-dried mango slices when he thought no one was looking. My actual daily responsibilities, in order of how much time they consumed, were calibrating the simulation table, keeping the coffee machine from catching fire, and filing incident reports when it caught fire anyway. Somewhere below all that, in fine print nobody had updated since my transfer, was advise on human tactical variables, a duty the Dominion had never once invoked. Then the Skarn Remnant actually showed up, and the bad feeling apparently became contagious. I want to be clear that I did not do anything unusual that day. I made coffee. I logged the contact alert. I typed Skarn Fleet inbound, confirmed 11 vessels, into a report nobody would read until after the fact, and I sat back to watch the simulation validate itself in real time, the way it had validated itself for 9 straight days. It did not validate itself. The first sign of trouble from the Dominion's perspective was that the human defense grid didn't retreat to the modeled fallback line. The model had every human vessel pulling back to a defensive crescent formation, conserving fuel, waiting to be picked off methodically, like the simulation politely suggested. Instead, according to the tactical feed, half the human fleet immediately did something the simulation had never once accounted for. They went the wrong way. They're advancing, Vex said, stylus frozen halfway to her mouth. Why are they advancing? Fuel efficiency, I said, not really paying attention, because I was trying to get ketchup out of my sleeve. Ships have a shorter burn if you close the distance instead of running. Somebody probably worked the math. The simulation said retreat was optimal. The simulation's never actually flown anything, I said. It's just guessing with extra steps. Thoss did not appreciate that comment, mostly because it was true and he'd spent 9 days defending the model to his own command staff. He said something in Dominion battle cant that the translator rendered as a string of untranslatable profanity and went back to watching the feed. The second sign of trouble was that the human vessels weren't fighting like a fleet. They were fighting like 11 separate arguments that all happened to agree on the same conclusion. One destroyer, the Cassandra Bell, went dark on sensors for 4 minutes and reappeared inside Skarn formation, close enough that the raiders' point defense couldn't get a clean firing angle without risking their own ships. Nobody on the Dominion bridge could explain how she'd closed that distance undetected until somebody remembered that Cassandra Bell's captain used to run smuggling routes before the war, and old habits, apparently, translate well to new problems. That's not in any doctrine, Thoss said. That's not in anyone's doctrine. Captain probably just did it because it worked last time, I said. I was on my second granola bar by then. Watching a war on a projection table has a way of making you hungry, and a way of making you forget it's a war and not a tense sporting event. Somewhere between the second and third sign of trouble, one of the Skarn Remnant vessels opened a general broadcast channel, demanding Earth's immediate surrender in standard tri-fleet format. Coordinates, terms, a countdown clock of their own. The reply came back 30 seconds later from a human corvette, unencrypted, auto-translated before anyone could stop it. It was a countdown of its own, followed by a request for the raiders to repeat the part about surrender, slower, so we can put it on a t-shirt. Thoss asked me, in a voice that already regretted the question, whether this was a standard human psychological tactic. No, I said. That's just Petty Officer Reyes. He does that. Does what? That the third sign of trouble, and the one that made Vex actually stand up out of her chair, was the tugboat. I want to stress that it was genuinely a tugboat. An unarmed, decommissioned orbital tug named Betty's Problem, crewed by 4 civilian salvage workers who had apparently decided that civilian was a suggestion rather than a rule. Betty's Problem had no weapons, no shields worth mentioning, and a top speed that a Skarn cruiser could beat while towing another Skarn cruiser. What Betty's Problem did have was 40 tons of scrap iron in her cargo bay, which she released, at speed, directly into the flight path of 2 raider gunboats attempting a flanking maneuver. That is not a weapon, Thoss said, very slowly, the way a person says something they are hoping will become less true if they say it carefully enough. It's not a weapon, I said. The gunboats didn't die from the scrap iron. They died from what it made them do, panic maneuvering directly into each other, at which point the armed human escort finished the job with the leisurely precision of someone finishing a crossword puzzle. Vex sat back down. She didn't say anything for a while. By hour 2, the model's confident red countdown had become something closer to a confused red suggestion. By hour 3, 3 Skarn vessels had disengaged entirely, one of them broadcasting what the translator flagged as a distress signal, though I privately suspected it was closer to a complaint. By hour 4, Thoss stopped watching the model and started watching the actual tactical feed instead, which I think was the single biggest compliment the simulation had ever received, in the sense that everyone had finally agreed to stop trusting it. I kept doing my job through all of it, because my job, as far as I understood it, was to keep the coffee machine running and occasionally confirm that yes, the humans were still doing that. Somewhere around hour 5, Vex asked me, with the kind of careful, wounded curiosity of someone whose entire professional worldview had quietly caught fire, why human forces didn't seem to follow any consistent tactical doctrine. We do, I said. It's just not one doctrine. It's more like 11 captains all independently deciding the manual is a rough draft. That should not work. It mostly doesn't, I admitted. But it only has to work once per fight, and we've had a lot of fights. By hour 6, the point at which the simulation had promised total defeat, the Skarn Remnant raider fleet consisted of 2 ships, both retreating, neither of them shooting at anything, one of them apparently towing the other with what I can only describe as visible reluctance. The human defense grid had taken damage, real damage, 2 ships limping, a dozen wounded, nothing anyone was going to call a clean victory. But nobody was dead who didn't have to be, and Earth was still there, which the model had been extremely confident would not be the case. Thoss stood in front of the projection table for a long time after that, arms folded, watching the little blue wedges that were, against every prediction his division had generated for 9 straight days, still moving. The simulation was wrong, he finally said. The simulation was fine, I said. It just assumed we'd fight the fight it wanted us to fight. He looked at me the way you look at a smoke detector that's just saved your life and also somehow ruined your evening. Then he asked, with the particular caution of a man who has learned to fear the answer, what the humans would have done if the tugboat hadn't worked. Probably something else, I said. We had 11 ships full of ideas. The tugboat was just the first one that landed. 2 days later, I received a Dominion Commendation Medal, engraved, in Vorthane script, with something the translator rendered as for distinguished contribution to adaptive chaos mitigation, tactical modeling division. I still don't know exactly what I did to earn it. I made coffee. I ate 2 granola bars. I watched a tugboat named Betty's Problem save a planet with 40 tons of scrap metal and pure spite. I hung the medal on my snack drawer. It seemed like the right place for it. Sub-Marshal Thoss ordered the simulation decommissioned the following week. Officially, the report cites insufficient predictive reliability under human variable conditions. Unofficially, Vex told me they've started a new file. It's not a combat model anymore. It's just a running list, updated after every engagement, titled as far as the translator could manage it, things humans have done that we did not expect. Last I checked, it was up to 41 entries. I told her I could probably think of a few more, given time and a decent snack drawer. She didn't ask what I meant. I think, by then, she'd learned better. The Ashground Vigil still runs battle simulations, technically. Nobody trusts them past a training exercise anymore, and Dominion Command quietly started attaching a footnote to every briefing that mentions human forces. Outcomes may vary due to unmodeled factors. I helped write part of that footnote, though I don't think that was the intention when they handed me the draft to proofread. I still make the coffee. I still keep the snack drawer stocked, metal and all. And if the Skarn Remnant, or whoever comes after them, ever asks for an updated 6-hour prediction, I've told Vex she's welcome to run it. I just wouldn't bet the tugboat on it holding up.